a fun start. It's already been a fun start to the show. We're live. This is Anytime with Ken and Alden, and we are having a lot of fun already. Wow, on a Friday, we are about 1 minute from show. We were 1 minute from show, Alden, when an earthquake struck. My side, not yours.
Yeah, your side, which gets no warning about what happens to you. We at least, hurricane watch is like a sport over here, but Earthquakes, you said, I think an earthquake just hit with the calmness of I think a bird just chirped.
I actually enjoy the earthquakes. Earthquakes are fun in a weird way for me. And not the serious ones, not like the one in Japan. I had some friends in Tokyo visiting when that struck, and I was on the phone with them at 1 a.m. my time to make sure, okay, earthquakes are serious. Put that caveat out there. But that was like a 4.6 several miles away, and just things were. It's a subtle rolling sensation, Alden.
Yeah, it's interesting. Does it sort of tickle that part of you that reminds you that anything can happen in this life?
Yeah, you know what it does? I was a first responder for so many years as a public safety director. And I was the public safety director at the earthquake at the mall that collapsed in the 1994 Northridge earthquake. So we had a history with it, and it just springs you into action. You're like, let me go check on the pipes. I got to check that pipes of the house and get through it. But we're good. We're here. But that's why we had a little bit of delay. And this last week was a technical delay. This week it's an earth delay. Nature, healing.
Not actually tech. Instead, it was just the planet reminding us that it's in charge, and we're not.
It's in charge. This is Anytime with Ken and Alden. Thank you for joining us. It's our Friday show. We go live. Don't forget to subscribe to the Anytime with Ken and Alden YouTube channel, but you're watching live now on the Ken Knapsack channel because this is the monetized channel. We're growing the other one. That's how the old YouTube works. That's how you make a living in this industry, Alden. I don't even know what industry we're in anymore.
Yeah, I'm unclear about that now because I thought it was broadcast media and entertainment. Sometimes though it's called content, and sometimes though it's called being your own brand. And I don't know if I'm good at that last one, but
look, I'm my own brand. I eat cereal for dinner now again. I stopped eating cereal for 10 years, but now I'm that guy. That's my brand. That's
why did you stop for 10 years?
My doctor told me. This is about 2000. Actually, it's been a lot, maybe. What 2024? It's been about 15 years. Wow. My doctor in 2010 was like, "Do you have a lot of ice cream, steak, and like sugar?" And I was like, "Yeah." He's like, "You need to stop that." So I cut out the insane amount of cereal boxes in my house, and I never went back to it until this past year. I use the oat milk, so that just makes me think it's even that much more healthy. And you know what? I had the Tasty-O's, or those little honey O's. It's an underrated cereal, and I've just been downing 3 bowls a night.
That's fantastic. I'm a cereal diehard. I think if my doctor ever said to give up cereal, I would just look at them and say, well, you might get sued for some sort of malpractice for not forcing me because I'm going to die.
You just say, then we die. If we die, we die. That's what you might say there. We are on the socials. We are on all the socials, whatever you want to call Twitter or X. We're there anytime on air, Instagram and Threads as well, as we continue to grow. It's been a lot of fun doing the show. This is like our 7th episode, first of the new year, and we're here. And Alden, we're going to have a guest today, a very last second. I almost didn't get the lower third prepared guest.
Yes, the very first guest in Anytime history, somebody who saw one of the planned topics and immediately hit us up and said, I have to talk about this. Somebody that which by the way, is not a normal guarantee. This is somebody we know. This is not a random. I should say that. It's not just an internet person that said, let me in. Somebody we know, love, and trust, who once he said, I got stuff to say, I was like, oh yeah, of course you do. That makes perfect sense.
Yeah. We're trying to make this show. This is not just a casual calm podcast. It's like a news show, a world event show, a pop culture show with segments and blocks and all those kind of things. And I'm going to bill him when he shows up, if I remember, as a Green Day expert is what he is to me.
Mm-hmm.
He's also a great filmmaker. That's right. We're talking about Alex Backus, who'll be joining us on the show shortly here, and it's going to be a lot of fun. But as always, I think it's time, Alden, we get to that very fun and unfortunately at times really serious news segment. So let's go ahead and do that, everybody, as we talk about the news. Here's a look at some of the headlines making the world spin this week. What a week it was. There was another high-profile school shooting in Iowa this week with one sixth-grade student killed. A massive earthquake in Japan, as I mentioned. A harrowing crash on an airport runway in Japan. And Mike Johnson did some performative tough talking at the southern U.S. border. What's your plan, Mike? What's your plan? But we all know the story you want to hear. Oh, yeah, the one that's had its own countdown and carries with it a rabid fan base of morbid devotees. Jeffrey Epstein's list, or rather a flight log, or rather a list of known associates, or rather a list of some people who might have been around him in some fashion, or even just mentioned by him during the course of his lifetime as a sexual predator and jet-setting financier. And that was all set to be released this week, and oh boy, was the countdown to that list exciting or what. I bet some people held list parties. I know you did, you sickos. This all stemmed from the U.S. District Judge Loretta Preska's December decision that all of the information should be unsealed because there was no legal justification for keeping it from the ravenous public hungry for names to skewer. The documents were part of the 2015 civil lawsuit from Virginia Giuffre against Ghislaine Maxwell. She's in prison now. The list of names include associates and accusers, and a person being on the list doesn't mean they are accused of any wrongdoing. That's key. It could just mean that they knew, talked with, or rubbed shoulders with Epstein, a rich and powerful person who liked to be around rich and powerful people, or even just claimed that he knew rich and powerful people. And again, it could mean that they are an accuser or a victim of Epstein's sex trafficking. All these things that you should keep in mind when discussing this, but no one will. So names like Kate Blanchett, Cameron Diaz, Stephen Hawking, and even George Lucas aren't necessarily there for nefarious reasons. And let's be honest, George Lucas probably wandered into one of Epstein's party like it was a mall food court or a random documentary. All right, and this goes for even the names you expected to, and be honest, wanted to be on some devil's list of demons. This has led to a Rorschach's test for everyone based on news headlines, a test that people like Aaron Rodgers failed. But more on that later in the show. There are some names that have popped up in the details of the unsealed depositions and testimonies, and their described actions do merit scorn at the very least, or the fervor of pitchfork-wielding mobs at best. I suggest you read them if you can, and if you can stomach the horrifying actions described, and decide for yourself. And please, someone read the accounts of Donald Trump to Speaker of the House Mike Johnson, because his Covenant Eyes app is probably blocking the content. None of this is me suggesting that any of this is a nothing burger. The sex trafficking done by Epstein and Maxwell is evil, and there absolutely were rich and powerful people taking part. Still, this list didn't necessarily provide those names, confirm that everyone you want to go down will go down, or reveal who killed Epstein. Discuss with caution. Unless, of course, you're Aaron Rodgers. Again, more on that later. And now to the calm, collected waters of the Middle East. Where to begin, and how can this end? Israel has announced their plans for the next phase of the war as if this were an ongoing superhero franchise, perhaps the second coming of Christ and just part of the multiverse. The plan includes a brand new approach in the north of Gaza and, shall we say, a more narrow-focused approach to rooting out Hamas leaders bunkered down in the south. All this while displaced Palestinians are just trying to survive a humanitarian crisis, with some telling CNN this week they would rather go home and just die with dignity. The United States has continued to support Israel's right to fight a war with the hostage-hoarding Hamas following the horrific October 7th attack on Israel, while the rift between the countries does continue to grow. In a report by CNN's Jennifer Hansler, a U.S. State Department spokesperson said that the results in Gaza on protecting citizens does not seem to match where Israel's intentions are. Which I guess the State Department speak for, we've asked the IDF to be cool, dude, and they're not listening. Last week, South Africa sued Israel in the World Court at The Hague on the grounds of, quote, alleged violations of the Convention on Prevention and Punishment of the Crime of Genocide in relation to Gaza. To make most Americans interested, that's like if Israel was on Epstein's flight log. The lawsuit prompted White House National Security Council spokesperson John Kirby to respond by saying the suit was meritless, counterproductive, and completely without basis in any fact whatsoever. His word, whatsoever. That's one do your research comment away from making him sound like he's a guest on the Joe Rogan Experience. And look, I did not read all 84 pages of the filing. I read the title page. So I'm open to more expert opinions on this, or, the world court justices, who I assume wear cowls and may or may not be eternals. But Kirby's response has the energy of the getaway driver saying, my friends just said they were popping into the bank to withdraw cash, and I believe them. We'll keep our eye on this. And all of this is a lot to take in. So let's finish with something lighthearted and fun like they do on local news, like a cat learning to make English muffins, or an old lady living to 111 because she cooks steaks and whiskey 3 times a day. All right, here we go. And finally, 2 bombs killed 84 people in the Iranian city of Kerman this week. The deaths, as well as injuries to nearly 300 other people, took place at the burial site of Qasem Soleimani, a military commander killed in a U.S. airstrike 4 years ago. Iran immediately blamed Israel for the strike, with their president warning that Israel would, quote, pay a heavy price for this crime and the crimes you have committed. A not-so-subtle reminder of the region's general thoughts towards the Jewish state. However, the next day, ISIS claimed responsibility. That's right, ISIS. Remember them? This is like a WWE superstar showing up on Raw years after they left. That's ISIS's music. The media wing of ISIS titled their statement, and killed them wherever you find them. And in it took responsibility for the murders at the ceremony commemorating Soleimani's death 4 years ago. And they said they did it in the name of taking out polytheists. That's right. This is having to do with ISIS's thoughts on the Shia branch of Islam being heretical in an ongoing, maybe never-ending religious war. So, no response yet from Iran at the time that I wrote this on the ISIS claim, and no apology for blaming Israel. Though it just takes you a few clicks into Twitter responses to get into the theories that ISIS did this for Israel. So, stay tuned. But at least an expansion of regional combat is on hold for one more day, folks. I don't have the energy to get into the Lebanon and U.S. military entanglements, so let's wrap it up. There's a lot of death and war afoot. I'd love to just do silly stories about Trump's diapers and his name being kept off states' primary ballots, but this is where the news spotlight has taken us. So keep your head up, and hey, spread some love today. But that's the news. Alden, anything you want to chat about?
Oh man, Ken. Oh man, this one right here. This one was heavy, which you said off air. But this Epstein list, man. This right here is peak, I think, American like barbarism and sensationalism, where we had an entire meme culture crop up over the course of just days of people either clenching their butts or, waiting with bated breath for someone they dislike to be on there. It got weaponized immediately, which we will talk about. And it was definitely interesting. And yeah, I mean, it comes up every time. Star Wars, huge component of our lives. George Lucas's name gets mentioned. Oh, what's that about? Not really nothing. It's just someone asked, did you ever see him there? No. That's and you start to ask, well, what about this connection? George is married to one of Oprah Winfrey's best friends, who is Melody Hobson, a powerful CEO. Oprah Winfrey was in the Weinstein circle of friends for a long time, as well as the Clintons, and boom, there you go. 6 degrees of Epstein complete. It's very interesting to see people react, and not to highlight LA as some sort of bad place at all, but I wanted to ask, did LA or any of your friends that are out there in the industry have a particular interest in this, or was it talk?
Yeah, no, look, absolutely. In that, dare I say, pop culture way, which again is to not lower the impact of all of this, or the case, or the victims and all those things. But yeah, it's a conversation piece, and it's for me. I look at when Epstein's list becomes just this thing. And that's beyond of what it actually is. And in many cases, it isn't actually a list. There's, like you just said, like names were mentioned because Epstein might have been bragging that he knew people. That's why they're in there. All the names who have been revealed, their legal teams had the chance to look it all over and the chance to say, no, we want to stay redacted or not. I think it all flows down into what do you do with the information. As Star Wars fans, we're lucky we don't have J.K. Rowling behind anything that we love. But if something absolutely horrible came out about George Lucas, that's the decision we'd have to make. And I think you and I would make the right decision about what we do. And so his name was. I saw that. I got text that name, and I immediately had that like, oh oh no, but then you kind of have to dig into it, and that's the test, I think. Can you dig into what actually is going on, or do you stick with the meme culture, which drives so much news?
Yeah, as it stands right now, I've got 2 Star Wars tattoos and one Wizarding World tattoo. And let's hope I don't wish to remove any further from my body.
Yeah,
That does create a little bit of a complication.
it
But
does.
yeah, it was definitely interesting to see what
Mm.
happened. And there were some that were obvious, like I don't want this to turn into the Clinton what's true what's not show, but I did think it was really funny to see the Bill. People were like, Bill Clinton is named on the thing. People were like, yeah, forks found in kitchen, like what, like
Yeah,
some of the worst kept secrets of all time
yeah,
in certain ways.
and even then, I want to wait. I want to wait to see of what actually is there about Clinton. A lot of it might make sense, but even then, that's just me myself following rumor and innuendo and meme culture. It's the I did it popped up on Twitter, X, whatever, and I read it. Some of the accounts of Trump and Dershowitz and Epstein, and they're horrific, and you almost can't finish it. But that when that kind of information comes out, that's what I always go down to. What are you going to do with that information? And there's a lot of folks maybe failing in that regard. Of their exalted second coming of 45th president hero, that they're getting this information and they don't want to face it. That's the problem for me.
Yeah, and it's a huge topic that we'll be touching on throughout each of our stories today is the idea of moving goalposts.
Yeah.
And, for me and not for thee. Oh, Stephen Hawking, George Lucas, Bill Clinton, down with all of them. And, but not these guys. There's a
Yeah.
reason for that.
Yeah.
These guys are fine.
Yeah, these guys, and you ask about the LA thing of it all, and it just there's a lot of bad things out here, right? There's a seedy underbelly, and a lot of people who might vote in ways that I agree with are part of that seedy underbelly. But that's just that's to me human nature and the downside of it, and just this rich and powerful, love rich and powerful, and a lot of people love to fake it. I've worked with some of these folks. I worked with some of these folks that eventually got outed, and even though you kind of knew some of it, or you just you were around them, and my name would have been in depositions. I think my name was in depositions. Where it's just like. It was a Tuesday, and I was there in that office, and that's part of what the Rorschach test, I think, is for this entire incident. Is this is unsealed court documents that are still unsealed. There's more even coming today, I think. So we'll see more information. But it is. You lead with it because that's what everyone is talking about. It. We love this. We love clasping our hands together as society and going, "Ooh, dark and seedy, evil things," and we love diving into it.
Yeah, we get tired of status quo and we get hungry for a shocking revelation, especially it's the beginning of the year and people want to
Yeah.
establish a tone. Yeah, it's definitely
Yeah.
full of motivations.
In our live comments, and you too, if you're watching later, can get in our live comments by watching the live show at 11 a.m. every Friday Pacific time. Jared the Dark Jedi says another factor that is scary about Epstein disinfo is that now that Twitter has been overtaken by white. I think he means right wing, but ring wing culture is fun. That spread disinformation with impunity are also going to muddy the waters a lot, and that's absolutely part of the problem as well. Where I said it on my 20 Minutes of Coffee show this week. The Japan earthquake hits around 1:10 a.m. My time, I think, or maybe 12:10 a.m. my time. I had friends, good friends there visiting, and I was worried. And I was trying to go to Twitter or X, again, whatever the hell you want to call it, and I couldn't get the information. So much disinformation. No official sources anymore. No CNN's tweeting about it. None of that. You couldn't find it. And I was getting horrific footage that was from 2011, the 8.9 earthquake, and that's also it as well. And that will lead to later on when we just go back to the Aaron Rodgers of it all about how disinformation can spread so easy. And again, nothing new. We're not saying anything super insightful here, Alden. This is just the world we live in.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, it's at the point now where every single thing is a vetting process of whether or not, first of all, whether or not a person said it, or if it was, a bot. And second of all, once you determine that this is probably a person and not Megan 8956823, love you, forever,
Yep.
click link in bio. Like once you've determined it's not her /it /Skynet, then you have to determine, okay, what are they trying to push? Did they
Yeah.
pay for the ability to have their comments raised to the top? That way,
Yeah.
the entire thing is irreparably damaged at this
Yeah.
point, I think, in terms of how we are able to even assess a conversation. We're having a culture war, and a lot of the participants are digital ghosts. They're code, and then
Yeah. Yeah.
it's
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. I always think of Ryan Johnson in that documentary whispering to his buddy there, like, I'm getting all these
Mhm.
tweets from Russian bots saying, "Don't kill Admiral Husk," or
Yeah.
Hux. I was going to say Hugs, like Poe Dameron. Yeah, it's a weird time, and look, it's all around. I'll highlight this comment from Mark Newman. Hey, the left is guilty on the misinformation front. I think this is something that happens all the time. Yeah, I've had this
Mhm.
conversation when it comes to like Star Wars stuff, where I've got friends on quote the left who are tweeting out things about Star Wars from news sites where I have to like text them and be like, dude, that ain't true. What do you? Why are you falling for this? Why? And it's one thing to get a fact wrong, smudge a fact, say something without the complete story. I think we might all do that. That's part of living. But it's just again the world we live in. It's like that. It's like that Collective Soul song. The world I know. This is where we are.
Yeah, it's exactly like the collective soul
Exactly like the
song.
Collective Soul song.
It was prophetic. We should have paid attention to the lyrics,
We should have
and
known. It
maybe
was a
we
big
would have.
radio hit. No one paid attention.
No
And we'll
one
talk
knew.
about art and no one paying attention to music from the 90s and beyond a little bit later. We have a special guest, Alex Backus, is set to join us here
Yes.
in a little bit, but we're still talking about some of the news there. And Alden, getting into the Middle East of it all, that's another test in trying to follow all the paths of information. And you and I have had this theme since we started the show of multiple truths. It's multiplying. And I know you in particular were following the South African lawsuit at least earlier in the week.
Yeah, I mean, it was felt like a momentous event to see a nation with, obviously the history of apartheid, and with everything that has transpired over the past, however many decades of South African history, of however many decades of Palestinian history, to see them go to The Hague and say, we'll be the ones that
Mm-hmm.
files this and says X, Y, and Z. This is a clause that we have. This is one of the conventions. They are breaking it. The conversation from the beginning has been about collective punishment and the disproportionate quality of what's happening over there
Yeah.
in Palestine, and it's disgusting to see someone that represents the states. I mean, something that I shouldn't be surprised about. It's not a surprise. Disgust and surprise are not intertwined in this scenario. To see someone say, "No, unsubstantiated," it's this claim, this, that, the other thing. There's nothing to back this up. What on earth are you talking about? Like that?
Yeah.
It's
The,
Orwellian. Like it really is.
there's a lot of I saw some commentators saying there's a lot of times that I think it was John Kirby and
Mhm.
others in that department have just said no comment or we don't have enough information. They've played every other question better than that one was no truth whatsoever. And I admit in the news admit now I didn't follow the story with as closely as you or others. I just think it's part of the tone and tenor of what's going on where. Sure, you can hold on, and I'll admit I'm someone that still holds on to the idea of like, yeah, a country might have a right to defend themselves against another state or government or even a non-state actor, but when you start pushing that justice line towards vengeance and everyone else is going, this is what you're doing, and you keep saying no, we're not. That's kind of the tone and tenor that's growing,
Yeah.
and that is what will. I don't know. That's got me worried for the future a little bit. I don't like to live in worry and fear, but this
No,
region
no.
is getting, it's always been just a fun, easygoing region, hasn't it? But it's spiraling out in ways that are hard to track.
Yeah, and I think a huge component of the problem, especially as we're now in an election year, is that it's that region, but it's also America aiding and abetting in lies, and in lies in broad daylight. Where when we crossed, the 20,000 dead and however many thousands of children, and all of these civilians and the refugee camps and just like all of these verifiable facts, like journalists that you can see reporting as they are finding out that their families are gone because an apartment building just got blown up, or and the fact that the argument is, oh well, why is Hamas using them as shields? What don't you don't get to do that. You don't get to. It would be like, I think the best argument I heard, and I wish I could credit this person, was if somebody grabbed your spouse or mother or father at gunpoint and then the police shot through them to kill the criminal, you don't get to be like, sorry about that. It's such a shame they use them as a shield. Like,
right.
It's that en masse with innocent people for the United States to be like, it's not happening, is stuff that we will be talking about when I am old and gray and have grandchildren. Like, it's it's the reason I say Orwellian is that it's that iconic line, when they asked you to deny the evidence of your eyes and ears. It's, we're just going to give them a bunch of money. And then I hate that I understand why people are ready to either not vote or not care, or it's gross.
The disenfranchisement of perhaps the left a little bit over this issue. I that, I'll be honest, that frustrates me because it frustrates me in the sense of, look at what your options, look what we'll be facing, and it denies the delicacy of the situation and the histories of what needs to go on there. But also, what you're talking about too. I'm thinking of all these times the CIA sponsored coups and all those things all through our history, and this messy underbelly that is sometimes hard to reconcile. And I think that's that's the theme I'm taking from you. It's hard to reconcile at times.
Absolutely.
And hard to know which way's up, I think.
And at the same time, though, as you and I've talked about off air, as I've talked about with many people, multiple truths. I think I'm on the record, on air, online. It is a genocide happening in real time. I am on the record saying I think it is horrendous and beyond the pale what this current administration is contributing to it, whether that is in running PR interference for an entire powerful country, or in denial of facts. But also at the same time, and this is not a both sidesism thing, which is where the left starts to eat itself, which is, if you say but, you're both sidesing. No, we're really not. But if it was the opposition right now handling this, if it was Trump and well, I guess it would have been Pence at the time. If it's Trump and insert VP here, who I'm sure will be worse, and Johnson,
Marjorie Taylor Greene.
Oh, you said it, and that it stung a little bit. Yeah, if it's him and his kids and his cronies handling this, then what? Yeah. Then I'm just, there is always, as horrendous as it is to say, there is always a worse in terms of the way we play our role. Yeah, and as either as world police or as an ally. There's all like I can only imagine that if this was somebody else and this was the Donald handling this instead of Uncle Joe, there'd probably be American boots there right now. There'd probably be No, and
look, and I'm the first to say, and I know you agree too. Like, I'm not a foreign policy expert. I don't work at the State Department. I don't have all the files in front of me. That's not why I have these discussions. I have these discussions on how do you, as a normal citizen, just trying to get up and go in the world, how do you reconcile with this? How do you dig into it, and where do you come up with a good direction to go and go towards hope? And that's just been hard. It's been hard, and it'd be lovely to just put your head in the sand and not engage with this stuff, and host a silly show where we make fart noises all day. But that's not where I'm at, and that's not where you're at. And so we're just trying to make sense of something that's almost impossible to make sense of, I think.
Yeah, real quick before we move on, I do want to bring up Ben's comment here. Just watched Spielberg's Munich yesterday. The film should be shown in every high school across the country this month. Gives such great context to the current conflict. I will say, before anybody jumps on Ben or me, I can hear it already, because that's how the internet trains us, right? Is to hear the yelling before it happens. that movies are not documentaries. It's not that completely 100%.
Sure.
But I do think in the spirit of, like we talked about in our previous episode, Barbie opening the door for conversations and learning, for
Yep.
Glory opening the door for conversations and learning, or how a lot of people found out about the Tulsa because of Watchmen. I do think in that same vein, Spielberg's Munich, very important. It was a noticeably darker turn for him. It was Spielberg reckoning with a lot of post 9/11 paranoia and distrust and broken trust. So definitely check that out.
Check it out, indeed. Before we get to our big segment today about when political art gets political, I forgot. I pressed forward, Alden. You got to stop me when I do this. We love to start the show taking a look at the world with our segment, What Ben Affleck Are We? And Alden, what Ben Affleck are we today?
Well, today's Ben Affleck sort of serves as a sequel to last week's Ben Affleck. I guess that makes it like Ben Affleck, Dawn of Justice or something. This is Ben Affleck now completely aware of the fact that people take the photos of him with his Duncan. This is apparently a commercial. I would assume Super Bowl. That's my guess. That they are filming out there at his residence. He is carrying like triple his usual order with incredible poise. And then on his shirt is a photo of him and Matt Damon as teenagers with the caption Day Ones. So I'm hoping that Matt is inside the house for the next scene in the commercial.
This is it. I love this photo. We can get into how it relates to us, but when this popped up, and this is how the internet works, I saw this and I went, damn, Ben, you got to stop with the donuts, man. Like, I just took it as real. I just thought this was his normal Tuesday. But then you look closer and Super Bowl commercial seems absolutely right. And I love it. Because Ben has his reputation with all the memes around him of just being grumpy and sad and over it all. And maybe he is on some level. But I like that this is still Ben Affleck, who was the bomb in Phantoms. So this is great for me.
The bomb and Phantoms, yo. Something that I actually once got to say to his face, and he laughed. So he is always a in on the bit type guy, and I think there's a lesson there. If there's something that's perceived about you, and you can turn it into joy and turn it into comedy and embrace sort of your persona. There's a healthiness there.
Hey, look, everyone thinks I'm a grumpy a-hole, and I'll lean into it sometimes as well. All right, we're going to move on to our look at some entertainment news. I'll set it up here, then you can help me bring in our wonderful guest, our first official guest of Anytime with Ken and Alden. We kept telling you we're going to have guests, and we just didn't know this one was going to be this fast, and I'm so excited for it. On New Year's Eve into New Year's Day, the ball dropped, and, that means you got to have a lot of bands playing. At one point, Green Day, the venerable rock and roll Hall of Fame punk band turned legends, came on and did a updated version of their song American Idiot, and they changed one of the lines to "They're not part of the mega agenda," which of course started a absolute fervor around the world of this band getting political, which of course means we get to have the conversation about they always were. But there's a lot more to it, a lot more different takes, and Alden, we could not have this conversation alone.
No, we couldn't. I am so proud to say that the first guest in the history of Anytime with Ken and Alden is a friend of the show, a filmmaker, a one-time host, a punk rock enthusiast, a guitar player in his own right, performer, writer, director of That's Our Time. This is Alex. Alex Backus.
Oh my gosh, I haven't been on anything with a microphone in probably 2 years now.
Yeah.
So if it sounds bad, I was looking for my podcast microphone. I was like, I gave all the cables away to people. I was like, I gotta be one of those guests that's using their AirPod microphone. So apologies if it's not up to the standards of Anytime with Ken and Alden.
No, look.
Yes.
When CNN has people from their MacBooks in their dens, I think we're okay.
Yeah.
This is great. Alex, great to have you here. Happy New Year, buddy. It's been too long since we've embraced in person.
Happy New Year, dudes.
Yeah, we'll start with you here, man. I want to start with this. When did you become a Green Day fan, and when did you learn they were political?
The reality of it is I am from Northern California, and I grew up listening to, you can probably, there's a lot of arguments to be made about Green Day, but we'll say pop punk for the sake of this. Like,
Yeah.
I don't really want to have my DMs blow up about what punk is and what pop punk is. I don't care. Like,
Yeah.
It's all hot topic Funko Pop now. Like, counterculture is just pop culture. I agree. The first album that I ever asked for as a birthday present was Nimrod. Because, and this is how punk I am, I had heard "Time of Your Life" on the Seinfeld recap episode.
Oh, hell yeah.
I was like, this rules. I gotta get this. And then I listened to the record and I was like, this doesn't sound anything like that song on the Seinfeld recap. But I had left it in my dad's car, and he was like, hey, what was that music you were listening to? I'm like, oh no, I'm in trouble. I'm in such trouble. That's right. Defend pop punk. Hashtag defend pop punk. I'm in so much trouble. And he goes, this is pretty cool. And I was at the age where, like, if you're like, my father gave it a stamp of approval, it was worth kind of exploring. That's how, again, how punk Green Day fans are. And honestly, after that, it was like listening to Green Day, Pennywise, Offspring, Blink-182, Rancid, Operation Ivy. If you're from the Bay Area, like, Operation Ivy is kind of like standard procedure. Like, you have to listen to Operation Ivy. I was just riding BMXs and listening to punk, you know what I mean? With the little headphones that go behind your head. Remember those? Like, that was like a thing with like a Shockwave CD player, so it didn't skip while you're doing sick jumps. So I've been I would say Green Day. I would have said Green Day is my favorite band probably up until maybe the last like 10 years. Not like it just. I think I just sort of like detached from them and just kind of fell into different tastes. Like, I don't know that I've really loved a Green Day record since American Idiot. Like, that was like the last real record where I was like, all bangers, no skips. I can listen to this record top to bottom, and I'm sure we'll get into it. But yeah, I've been a Green Day fan for quite some time.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And when did I find out they were political? Like, come on. Like, they were singing about gender identity and homosexuality on Dookie. Everybody, get with it.
Yeah. And, you mentioned American Idiot. That's 2004. And, it doesn't matter where I was because it's just a baby. But in 2004, where are you, Alex? You're
2000.
You're like perfect audience member for American Idiot.
I can tell you exactly where I am when American Idiot came out. I'm 18 years old, and I have moved to Los Angeles by myself. And I've lived here for 2 weeks. And I remember going down to the Sam Goody on the Santa Monica Promenade and getting my pre-ordered copy of American Idiot, the CD. And that basically like got me through the first probably year of living in Los Angeles by myself. I also, the first thing I have a great, when I saw you guys were talking about American Idiot, that's why I got so excited, because it actually does hold a very special place in my heart. I went to the record release show at the Henry Fonda Theater on Hollywood Boulevard. Nice. They played the record all the way through. I sat next to Tim Armstrong of Rancid and Operation Ivy. Wow. And I had like a little backpack that like I put some t-shirts in, and the guy sitting next to me was like, "Hey, are you a big Green Day fan?" I said, "Yeah." And he goes, "Hang with me after the show." Now, mind you, I'm 18 years old. I go after the show. I hang out with him. He takes me upstairs to the record release party where I partied with the band, and Paris Hilton and Cheech Marin was there, like making cocktails for people. Trey
the gummy salesman.
Yeah, exactly. Trey made me a drink. He's like, "I call this the Cheech," and gave it to me. And I was like, I can't, like, Hollywood is so easy. I'm hanging out with all these famous people. This is so easy. I'm going to be so rich in like a year. So I have a lot of like really kind of strong, profound connections to this record. It's very important to me. So it's wild to me. It's insane that somebody would think for a second that this band is not political.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Well, I'm so glad you mentioned that, because we have Paris and Cheech here on the show. No, we don't.
Everybody.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Wow.
I want to start diving into the fervor this week. And Alex, I want to, you wanted to be here and I want you to talk about it. I'll start by saying I totally know there's folks who are like, what? Like Paul Ryan saying Rage Against the Machine was his favorite band, or any Republican that says, let's play Born in the USA, from Springsteen, and not getting the Reagan era attack that it is, all this stuff. Like, I think there's those people. I also think this is just somewhat made up, right? That this is somewhat like, there's no way you could have thought that this band wasn't already here like this, or that most bands aren't, or that most artists don't have this in their art. That's why my title is When Political Art Gets Political. Duh. And I think it's a game. It's part of this culture war game that I both want to fight and ignore, but here I'm fighting it today because I think it needs to be discussed.
Mm-hmm.
It's fairly stupid. I mean, you're hitting the nail on the head. It is an invented conversation to like get involved in the discourse. It's just, I don't even think that's the first time I've heard Billy say, I don't want a part of your MAGA agenda. I've heard him do that live like 3 times. This isn't even a new thing. Like, as a Green Day fan, I'm like, come on, Billy, we gotta spice up the material.
Yeah.
I mean, there's one this for a minute, Billy.
There's one from American Music Awards like 3-4 years ago. That is the chant. No Trump, no KKK, no fascist USA was the whole, that was, they led the crowd in that. And people are now surprised. Yeah. Cause it is manufactured. And I'm curious, Andy left a great comment here about sort of, not to go down the punk road, but once you have a Broadway jukebox musical, I don't think it's really punk anymore. Doesn't necessarily say it's a bad thing. I still dig them. Do you think, Alex, that their rise from punk heroes to just mainstream heroes does that muddy the waters and open them up to BS like this?
Well, I think they're just like, I think rock and roll is kind of just a strange genre now. It's sort of like, I can't think of a lot of new, and this also could just be my age, so forgive me if there are people listening here that are like, what's he talking about? There's like incredible rock acts. Like I could maybe think of like Turnstile, like Drug Church. There's a couple of like Can't Swim. Like there's a couple of bands I really like that are still making what I would consider to be like alternative punk or pop punk. To be honest with you, like you could go both ways. You could go the way of like, that's the most punk thing you could ever do is make a Broadway musical, because no punk band would ever do that. Like the entire idea that like there are rules and regulations to being punk is completely antithetical to the idea of punk. Right. It makes no sense. So like to say that something's punk because it has a denim jacket and a back patch is ridiculous. Like in the Bay Area in the early 90s, they would have laughed right in your face if that's what you thought punk was. There's an incredible documentary for anybody that's interested in Bay Area punk called, oh my gosh, I have the vinyl back here. Give me 1 second.
Let's look at that Peloton. Have you worked out to Tenet?
Have you worked out to Christopher Nolan?
Yeah. No, I haven't. It's called Turn It Around, the story of East Bay punk. It is a stellar documentary about the Gilman scene and Op Ivy and Green Day and all of these incredible bands that came out of that scene. And they were sort of like hippie artists. They weren't even like your traditional New York CBGB punk. Like, I think everybody has their own idea about what punk is. And it's the same as, forgive me for bringing up the largest pop culture thing the three of us have in common. It's the same thing as Star Wars. Like everybody has their own idea about what it is, and when it veers away from what they like, people get aggro about it. And the reality of it is punk is just fast music, usually by musicians that are bad at their instruments. Is kind of how it started, and now it's it's melodic, it's fun. A lot of bands I still love. Some of them that I loved when I was younger, I just can't stand their records now. It's like,
you're old, man. You're old.
I think Green Day's a legacy act, and that's very weird to say.
Yeah, absolutely.
They're trying to be U2. That's what they are. They're trying to be Bono. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if Green Day's in the Sphere in like 5 years and there's like graffiti flying around your face.
Yeah.
So
it's going to be footage of the Bay Area that in the Sphere that everybody could. Yeah, it's really weird. And you brought it up, and it already come up before you called in. Star Wars, it is sort of like the apotheosis of that in film, of people choosing to not get it. Doesn't matter how many interviews and documentaries we have with George and Kasdan and whoever else about that, what they were saying, people will choose to ignore it. I'm curious, you're an independent filmmaker. You have a short that's been doing the festival scene now, which we will talk about in full on a later episode, absolutely, about the actual short itself. But are these the kinds of conversations that you run into on the festival scene? This let's intentionally not get it. Are people bringing agendas of that sort?
If you're going to like an independent film festival, I'd say probably 9 times out of 10, you're probably fairly progressive minded. I don't know. Like that takes, I'll say it. I'm a person that goes to them and participates in them. And that takes some patience to sit and watch like 2 hours of independent short filmmaking. The chances of you getting stuff, like, I don't think there's a single short block that we were a part of that did not have at least 2 hyper political short films. It's just, it fuels art. Like, what are we talking about here? Like, even if you don't agree with the politics, everybody has art that they can plug into. It's how humanity expresses themselves. It's how we preserve our stories through these stories. Like, it's not, people just want to fight about shit. It's really that. I mean, and we're in an election year, right? It's perfect. Like, let's jump in and let's start fighting. And Green Day is a great place to start. You know?
On something that I would describe as pretty innocuous on a Ryan Seacrest ball dropping show, and we even got a question in chat that might come off as a challenge, but I don't think you understand where I'm coming from. It's the thing is, so are people that don't always agree with these political statements, are they just to shut up and go away, or are they still allowed to listen? Of course, you're allowed to listen. Because I listened for years because I was a white suburban Christian Republican kid. I knew what was happening. When George Lucas quoted George W. Bush and had the greatest villain of the saga of all time quoting him in 2005, I knew what it was about. I had to choose to either engage with it or just enjoy it on a level. What upsets me is when you act like it's not there. And I'm not saying the commenter here in our chat is saying this. I'm saying when people out there are acting like they're getting political. We always go to the Star Wars, Vietnam, Return of the Jedi thing. It's the Viggo Mortensen broke his toe of this discussion because it's the simplest thing. We didn't grow up. I was at 7 going, that was a statement on Vietnam. But once I learned what it is, I choose to either connect with it more and understand the art behind it, or I choose to just enjoy it for what it is. Bears fighting troopers in my head. I get upset when people don't want to engage on a deeper level. I get upset when people want to run away from it and just say, Born in the USA is a banger of a tune. I don't think anyone's saying that because they're about 70 if they enjoy that song still. And I enjoy The Boss. But it's that the message isn't new. Green Day's message isn't new. It's always been there. And if you choose to ignore it and you just want to listen to the tune, that's you. But the conversation, what Alex is talking about, what I'm talking about, you just want to fight. You just want to be Mike Johnson going, my little Covenant Eyes app wouldn't let me look at Green Day's music. Vote for that. That's the frustration that's happening.
And what fascinates me, and co-signing all of that, that comment, even if I don't agree with it, and again, not attacking you, dude. It's just the idea of acknowledgement doesn't seem to go both ways, because there's always the moving goalpost and the for me and not for thee, because these same networks, mostly Fox programs, that are saying, should we be letting the rock and roll band divide us? They are the same people that have Ted Nugent telling Hillary to take a ride on his rifle or whatever, or Kid Rock in the Oval Office.
Yeah, you have Ted Nugent at a chili cook-off talking crap on Taylor Swift. Good luck, Wango Tango. Look
at her venues and look at yours, pal. Like, it's just so you get a lot of that. A lot of what's acceptable for us is always right and just. They had a tarot card reading on Fox trying to push the MAGA agenda and things just the other day. But Green Day at not a political event, at just we're playing all types of music event, So there's that element of it, of moving stuff around. But then the other thing is when those of us that I think identify as progressive notice conservative elements in art, we identify it. And I don't think let me tell you right now, I did not go on Twitter and rant about how Rebel Moon is full of that stuff, is full of conservative leaning things. I identified them, and guess what? I moved on with my life because it's very easy to do that.
Yeah, well, but this happened. This happened with Clapton, Santana coming out as anti-trans, Clapton coming out as, well, always being a cocaine-fueled racist from the 70s and beyond. And this happened. There's one band that I don't know the full intentions of the song, but they were big in the 80s, and I like them. And they have some new music out, and I played it on my radio show, and I played their first single, and it was a great song. And then about halfway through, I realized the lyrics were, I think, anti-COVID, lockdown, anti-cancel culture. And I don't play them anymore. That's the choice I make, because I just don't want to. It doesn't need to be on my show if I don't want to. I just didn't tweet about it and go off on it and try to use it as an election platform.
Yeah, and that's the thing, is about how are you internalizing it?
I feel like I have like an interesting feeling about the question that was asked, which is like, should I just stop engaging with it? And I think the answer is absolutely not. If you enjoy something, please continue to enjoy it. You don't need to agree with something to love it. Like, you don't need, listen, we can't change the fact that most of the artists that are working today happen to be progressive liberals. Like, I don't think there's this like big secret cabal conspiracy to like eliminate other points of views. It just, the idea of being an artist kind of forces you to be progressive. It's very hard to be an artist and be like, I stand for conservative values, because to be an artist requires you to have an open mind and be empathetic and engaging with ideas that might challenge you and make things difficult for you. My writing partner and I are constantly going like, we're finishing up a feature film, and we were talking about some very specific lines, and we were really having a real back and forth. This is with my writing partner. I was like, man, I don't think we can say that. He's like, I think we can say it. I was like, can we twist it? Can we make our intentions clear through the language that we're choosing? I think every artist takes this very seriously. People aren't just like wielding things to make people mad. This is a personal journey. Like, people that make these movies, they make them for themselves. People who make this music make them for themselves. If you haven't read the Rick Rubin book, I really highly encourage you to go check it out. It's a great picture into how artists should be, or, could potentially be operating, that I think really helps people understand that, like, you're chasing feelings here. This is not like, no, people don't go outside and go, my goal is to piss somebody off who doesn't agree with me. It's my goal is to put myself out there so that someone could potentially connect with me. And it makes me sad that you can't find, like, you feel like you can't listen to Green Day because you don't agree with them politically. Like, trust me, there are so many artists that I love that if I sat down with them, I'd probably find them insufferable. But it doesn't change the fact that their art speaks with me on a primal level. So I think I encourage people to engage with things that challenge them. Don't turn your radio off because Green Day makes you bummed. Go listen to the Green Day you like. Just don't listen to the political stuff.
That too, and that it is about choices. And the follow up on that was when the artists say, I don't want those people listening, I'm at the center, I just want good music without feeling despised. I think the issue with that, or not the issue, but the element at the center of that is internalizing in a negative way for oneself, where I don't think that Billy or the members of that band, if they saw somebody that was in the center speaking or something, would like actively go and be like, let's make that guy's life worse. Like, I don't think it's a personal despising. It's just a matter of, can you hear music at something like a New Year's Eve event and have the self, the sense of self and the security to say, that's their take. Even if I don't agree with it, I'm going to grab my drink, my French fries, whatever. I'm going to rock out. Like, if you hear that and you feel despised by Green Day, I don't mean this flippantly or like that's a personal problem, but it is a personal problem.
Well, I've been changed by by engaging with Star Wars on a deeper level. It seems silly and trite, but that's the way we approach it at Force Center. That it is not trite pop culture. It is our culture. It's something that raised all of us. And in plugging in and not ignoring what George was saying, not ignoring what everyone else was saying, not ignoring what Bad Batch season 2, my favorite season of political Star Wars, was saying, that's changed my view, and I think that could happen. I'm not saying that you're suggesting back as go listen to Green Day and find your voting record suddenly changing. I'm just saying what I'm picking up from you is like the artists are putting their souls into this, and if you like the melody, that's the entry point to having maybe a deeper discussion yourself. And I see Mark's follow-ups are, hey, I'm just trying to start this conversation. That's good. Yeah, I get it. And we all maybe have artists along the way that we like, and then something they say or do beyond illegal stuff or criminal stuff or that's the sex crimes or anything like that. But
we're also talking about a 20-year-old record, which you have to look at the political state of America 20 years ago. Mm-hmm. Collectively, George Bush was a despised president by the end of his 8-year term. Everybody didn't like George Bush. Like, there's a reason Obama just absolutely shellacked that election, because everybody wanted, and I don't say this to be triggering, I really just don't want to talk about that level of politics, but it's like hope and change was like a collective idea in that election. And Green Day was sort of fueling that. Now, Bush won the election when American Idiot came out, but Green Day was sort of, I think, the like first sort of push towards this idea.
Well,
it was so transgressive for them to come out with that record at the time. It was like, whoa. And now
I joked that, it doesn't matter where I was, but I will bring it up. I was 8 going on 9 when American Idiot came up. Sorry guys. And
shut up.
But I will tell you, even in those, what is that? That's the 3rd, 4th grade, even in those classrooms, when somebody would listen to rock and roll, because 2004 is the year after School of Rock came out, which put a lot of us that were, going to see movies with mom, like it introduced us to it. I credit Jack Black and Linklater with introducing me to rock in a big way. And the fact that American Idiot came around and that we were reading the lyrics on our computers, checking over our shoulder, because those are really bad words. We don't even know what some of those bad words mean, but we know they're bad. Like that idea of I'm not part of a redneck agenda in Florida, when I would hear people self-identify as rednecks, like the fact that us children in a charter school with our little green and blue polo shirts, like the fact that we were picking up on it tells me that this is all in bad faith. To a certain degree, it is all in bad faith.
Yeah. That goes to my top of the statement there. It's it's the moment the words leave Billy Joe's mouth, you know what's going to happen. You're going to have Fox News pundits saying, "I just don't like it when rockers get political." It's the cycle. You gotta
look at this. Scotty's comment, perfect for what you're saying, Ken. I watched right-wing New Orleans concert goers lose their mind at a Roger Waters concert because they had an inflatable Trump pig fly over the crowd. You are literally at a Pink Floyd show.
Yeah, but and that's where part of my frustration. That's where a lot of it's frustrating. I'm not saying anyone here in chat. I'm saying it's frustrating in life. It's frustrating, again, going to the Springsteen Born in the USA thing, and it's played at right-wing political rallies. I'm just frustrated that people continue to miss the deep themes of art, whether they like it or not. This is a discussion we've had, like Secret Invasion. You don't like that show? Great. It is literally about post-COVID Trump era politics. It is about something that so huge that affected all of us that it revealed the true natures of us, and you can't trust even information, and you can't trust even the people you know. That's the themes behind it. That's from the writer's room. And when and if you just get lost on the surface and you don't understand that message is there, that's where I just get frustrated, because then you're just going through life not analyzing what the world is actually about, to me. And that's the big change that's happened in me.
And Alex, you brought up that it's a 20-year-old, literally now 2024, 20-year-old record. And I also think that there's something to be said about, shouldn't people, and again, will these people acting in complete bad faith ever do this? Probably not. But shouldn't people celebrate the fact that these guys that are all early 50s now, taking a song and saying, by altering this phrasing, this one lyric, we're just trying to tell you, yeah, we understood it then, and it's still happening now, and we still understand it now. Maybe it's in your hands, young punkers, punk rock bands out there. Maybe it's for you guys now, but we want you to know, the dads, we still hear you. And I think that that's a gesture that's a gesture that a lot of older artists don't do. They don't tip the hat to, we're still listening. They'll either play it as it was done, or they grow sort of embittered. It happens a lot in music. For them to just be like, yeah, maybe we aren't that. Maybe we are, as you said, Alex, maybe we are you too. But we want you guys to know that we're still on your side. And that's so valuable now.
But I mean, that seems, Alex, let you jump in there, but it seems like Alex, what's her name? Alden. It seems like your generation, that's a good perspective from your generation. The old guys, you and I have had the discussions about the Star Wars discussion in the world, about who's grown and matured and changed their worldview, and who has just stuck their stick in the mud and become outdated and problematic and quite frankly destructive. But I like that. Anyways, Alex,
I heard
shots.
this is like a kind of a weird left turn, but I think it's somewhat relevant to what we're talking about here, which is a buddy of mine who is a guest on our podcast all the time. I won't reveal his name for the sake of this story, but he said one quote to me that always really stuck out, which is like, "Hey man, if you don't want to be like the Beatles, then don't smoke weed." You know what I mean? It was such, and that always stuck out to me. It always stuck out to me. It's like, this is not new here. We have been these are ideas. These are cultural conversations we have been having for, at this point, hundreds of years. It'll always be like this. We will eventually, I promise you, the three of us on this call, we are going to wake up one day and we're going to be like, holy shit, we're grumpy. What the hell?
That was yesterday for me.
Yeah, I mean, it happens. It just happens. Like, you can't, you have to make a conscious, concerted effort to try and keep your mind open. And it takes work. It takes empathy, and then I'm not saying people that are conservative or closed-minded. My father is a conservative. I love my father to death. He means well. Those 4 years were tough, man. Going to those Thanksgivings, it was tough. But I just had to always tell myself, he's an older guy, and he just does. You feel like you start to lose a grip on something that you understand. You feel displaced. You feel unwelcome. I get it. It's easy. We all do.
Yeah.
But I think the answer is always empathy when it comes to art, man.
That's where I'm at, and I really love how you're tying it together there, even with Alden's statements about Green Day is getting older and they are a Legends act, but they're saying, hey, we're still involved, we're still plugged in, we're still finding ways to change, even changing some of the lyrics in their songs for better. Jared the Dark Jedi pointed that in chat, but that's the hard part about change. My parents are in the same. They're conservative too. We didn't speak for about a year after the Roe v. Wade situation, after it was overturned. We didn't speak. I had a big fight over that. You want to move on in life and you want to connect with your families, but it's they're struggling with just like this was how things were, and it's not. And I can't, and that's why I try to have some empathy towards them. I think, Alex, you're talking about empathy even towards them, of saying, yeah, we don't even say that word anymore, Dad.
Yeah,
but in my day it was fine. Yeah, because you didn't ask the people around you who were hurt by that word, not offended, who were hurt. J.K. Rowling's comments and her points of view lead to violence against trans people. That Dave Chappelle, those things empower people who then commit acts of violence against trans people. That's why it's dangerous, and that's why we don't say that or don't make that joke anymore. And it's hard. It's hard to go, I'm a little embarrassed. I thought I knew. Now I don't. And you got to move forward with it.
Yeah, 100%. Absolutely.
I was studying comedy at Second City 20 years ago, and I can't even begin to tell you how ashamed I would be if some of the sketches that I was writing at the Second City became public today.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? I didn't fucking know any better. I was just,
Mhm.
I thought I was being funny. I learned comedy from 80s and 90s comedies, and I thought that's how you did it. And it took people in my class, it took instructors, it took audience members coming up to me and be like, man, I don't know about that one. And you go, oh, okay. And you take the lick and you go, my bad, I'm sorry. Like, those two words are so powerful. Hey, I'm sorry. Like, isn't it crazy? Just say I'm sorry. Like, you can just say you're sorry and like walk away, and you can go into your dark room and be like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean, it's like you look back at sort of the things that were acceptable, even amongst like, you know, that childhood, middle school era of like just trying to get a rise out of people. You hit a stage where you realize that maybe it's not cool to just get a rise because you can. That's cheap and it's easy and things grow, and it's whether or not you have the grace to say, I'm willing to learn something, and I'm willing to change, and I'm willing to acknowledge. I mean, there's a great comment here from Andy. You know, I still love Robin Hood Men in Tights, but you better believe I'm not watching Chappelle's new stand-up specials. Yeah, you find those lines that work for you. You grow. Some things you could put within their context. Andy and I have had a great off-air conversations about a lot of things in the history of cinema, where Andy, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe you were saying that it's your partner that's a huge fan of Silence of the Lambs, as well as I am. I love the Silence of the Lambs. It's one of my favorite films, but it is a deeply transphobic villain plot in that movie. It really is. And you put it within the context of that time, and you acknowledge that perhaps we wouldn't do that then. However, that film, blah, 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 blah. Those conversations are so valuable in comedy and music and horror and all these things. And as long as you can have them, then you're a functioning adult. If you can't have them, then well, that's the issue.
Also, you can acknowledge that and still love Silence of the Lambs. Like, great. Like, Silence of the Lambs rules. Like, it's a great movie, but like, that's. I'll listen. Watch me practice what I preach. Alden, I'd never even thought about that with the Buffalo Bill character.
I hadn't thought about that until Andy brought it up to me.
And now the next time I watch it, I guarantee you I'll have a whole new perspective when I watch that film, and we'll see if it changes my opinion on the film.
Same here.
Yeah. Sometimes when you think you're like, I think I'm okay. Then we all have those lines, and then I'm with you, Alex. Sometimes something pops in my head, and I'll be like, I can never see that or hear that or listen to that the same way again. And that's it's not, none of it's easy. It's all complicated because time changes, time moves. But this has always been present. I'm about to dive into Cliff Nestor Haas's book on cancel culture and comedy and the culture wars in comedy, which are not new. They've been present for hundreds of years. It's just the same arguments thrown out time and time again. And that's part of this as well, of how dare they tell me I can't do blackface, right? We've been through the circle before. How dare they get political with this band? We've been here before, and that's part of the conversation. But I'm sorry, empathy, those are the words that I think are valuable. And Alex, I'm sorry that I haven't seen you in person for so long, and it took this show for us to say hello again.
I only ever see you when I'm on my bike riding down the bike path, and I see you walking your dogs like, hey, buddy!
Hey, buddy!
Yeah, I only ever see you in my space outfit, my cycling space outfit. It's not a good look. I try to be by myself as long as I can when I'm cycling.
I met Alex in Chicago for Star Wars. Mm-hmm. Saw Alex again in California for Star Wars. So the next natural step is not Japan for Star Wars. It's to hang out in a way that's not a convention.
Yeah. Maybe we'll watch some Star Wars.
You come out here, Alden. Fly out here. We'll go to a local diner here in Burbank. For great. And you haven't lived until you've seen Alex Backus in bike shorts. It's it's
legend. It's legend.
All right, Alex, thanks for joining us to talk about this Green Day thing. We're going to roll on here, but we'll say goodbye to our good friend. Follow Alex Backus. I know you're not as present on some of the social media sites, but you've got a short film. You got another film in the works. You're doing things. You, Steve, Josh, the whole team are doing things. We're really proud of you.
Here's what I'll ask someone: if support a local artist, support a friend of yours that is an artist. You don't need to support me. You don't know me. Go find a friend of yours that is hustling, putting stuff out there. go like one of their posts, leave a comment that you like what they're doing. Far more important than finding me online and saying, I like hearing you gripe about American Idiot for 30 minutes. Those guys.
But a great Letterboxd follow, I will say.
Oh, yeah. You can find me on Letterboxd.
Yeah.
Alex
the only social media that's good, Letterboxd. And when That's Our Time becomes available down the road for mass viewing, we're going to talk about it because it's a great film. And
that'd be amazing. I would love to.
I've seen it. It's wonderful. See ya. Bye-bye. All right, we roll on here. Anytime with Ken and Alden, and we have only a couple things left to say, but Alden, it's kind of I don't know. We might have already said everything we need to say about this, but I did want to address. We wanted to come back to what happened this week with this kerfuffle, and it's a silly kerfuffle in the grand scheme of the world. But the Pat McAfee show, Aaron Rodgers, this Jimmy Kimmel feud, Jimmy Kimmel threatening to sue. There's a lot about that, but I wanted to really talk about the Pat McAfee apology and the state of mind of those kind of shows and those kind of folks, and which is lined up with my change in my leaving past shows or channels that I was associated with, some because I was laid off, and that's why I'm not there anymore, and even just why I don't associate with a lot of the approaches to those kind of things. But I did want to start with just your general thoughts on this. I know you're not a sports fan like I am, and you might not know some of these characters, but what was your takeaway from this up top?
My takeaway from this, and the characters actually, this happens to be a story that I did know immediately the names. And I did know everything because our other love, professional wrestling, Pat McAfee, has been a SmackDown commentator. He had actually, honestly, legitimately a great run doing that. He brings a lot of passion to that role. Was very fun, very quickly beloved. He even had a singles match at Mania. He's done it. So I knew him from that world, and from when wrestlers and people have popped up on the show, I'll check out the clips. And then Rodgers, Aaron Rodgers, I know only for bad reasons, only for the BS that he has spouted, the anti-vaxxing or the trying to get Fauci debates going and just showing his ass around just the general sphere of culture and in America. The first thing I want to say is, especially connecting to our conversation we just had with Alex about growth and everything, the first thing I'm going to throw out is if you're in the comments right now and you're going to bring up the fact that Kimmel did blackface back in the day, I'm over that argument right now. I'm not over, obviously, the act. That's not at all what I'm saying. But I'm so done with the whataboutism that happens in a lot of these things that there's been a lot of like Kimmel's one to talk. He can't be doing that because look at what he did here. It's like, okay, the man has apologized for his acts 20 years ago that he knows are inappropriate. We're done there, as far as I'm concerned. As far as this issue is concerned.
I'm someone. Sorry, I'm going to jump in. I agree with this whole. It was also what we were just talking about here. It's about growth and change, and not stasis. I was someone who watched the Man Show back in the day. I was someone who listened to Adam Carolla every night on Loveline with Dr. Drew. I get it. There's all girls on trampolines. Yay, great. It was the time. It was Lad Culture, Maxim Magazine, Stuff Magazine. That was the time. That's what was selling. Look at WWE during that time. There's a reason it exploded. It wasn't the quality of the wrestling that exploded. The
it wasn't work rate.
It wasn't work rate. You have two cases of folks, Jimmy Kimmel and Adam Carolla. Look at their career paths. I'm not talking in terms of success and numbers. I'm just talking who they are as people. Mm-hmm. And Kimmel's an elder statesman, someone who can address these serious issues, who can cry out air. You got Carolla attacking mask mandates and just being in his new show on Ben Shapiro's network. God, get your money. I don't care. I'm not going to watch it. And it doesn't mean that I don't want it made. Do it. Find your audience, because clearly there's an audience out there for it. But you watch the two. It is about that growth, and I'm with you. Should blackface have been done at any time? Absolutely not. Of course not.
Yeah.
If he was still doing it or still defending it, that's the problem I'd have now.
Exactly. So I just wanted to get in front of that to establish where we are at on Kimmel as a creative. Like you said, he will cry on air. He will use the slot, the very good cush gig that he's got from Disney on ABC,
Yeah.
to address these serious issues, to talk about, I believe, his son's health issues, and just really lead with his heart as he has grown. From when I was in middle school, high school, we thought Kimmel was kind of hacky and hokey, but I've gained a different respect for him as he has, I think, gained a different perspective on himself. So we flash forward to now. He has had no issues over the last 6-7 years using that platform to take a stand and to voice his opinions on a lot of the conservative outrage, on the mask stuff, on the Trump stuff. And now we have what we now know factually, because the list is out, a completely factually unfounded BS, not a shred of evidence, nary a mention of Jimmy Kimmel's name, nothing in this Epstein list. And Rogers says on McAfee's show, for those of you that don't know, that, basically implies that his name will be there. Something to the effect of like, oh, it's going to be bad day for Jimmy Kimmel. Kimmel responds, kind of shreds him in a tweet, calls him a soft brain moron and this, that, and says, if you'd like, we can debate the facts further in court. And immediately, everybody that pays Elon Musk because they want to be relevant, so they need their comments to be boosted because they have nothing else in their lives, shows up with but you can't take a joke, Kimmel? Comic can't take a joke? It's not a joke. You just accused a father of being within the circle of a known sexual predator and human trafficker just because you can, because what, you don't like that he's made fun of you a couple times? Guess what, dude? Everyone's making fun of you. You don't just get to say stuff like that. And honestly, I hope that he sues him. So that's where I'm at on this, because I just don't like people getting away with stuff.
Yeah. No, I'm with you on that. I don't like people hiding who they really are, and that's a big thing in my life too. But I stand by everything you say there, and agree with it. And whether or not he actually sues, it'd be fun just to do it. I don't think, and who knows if he'd win. I don't even care about that. I don't care if you could prove that this was defamation or slander. What it leads to the conversation, the bigger conversation we're having here about the responsibility of words. This is in this comedy world I'm in about it's just jokes. That's what upset me more than anything. There's a lot to what you described that's it's upsetting, but it's just a kerfuffle to me. It's just a kerfuffle. McAfee's apology is what really got me this week. Now, I'll start by saying there's some things I understood. He's just saying, look, it's a 2-hour live show we do every day. We don't have a script. We don't do segments, A block, C block. That's kind of what we do here. The Force Center is not perfectly planned out. We're going to say a fact wrong. You're going to say this wrong. You're going to have an opinion that maybe some of the audience doesn't disagree with. That's all part of it. That's broadcasting, and I think I understand where McAfee's coming from. I've been part of those shows. I've been part of that. But the problem is the world has changed, and I have no problem. I'm going to state it again. I have no problem with a silly show that's got a robot voice and fart noises, and it's just there to make you laugh, because that is the importance of laughter. That is the key of laughter. Sometimes you do need to turn it off. It doesn't always need to be your eyes plugged into the news and plugged into issues. Sometimes you just want to watch a cat on TikTok do something silly. That's very valuable. So I'm with McAfee and all that stuff up to the point where it comes to what you're saying of we're just joking, we're just talking shit. That's what we do here, and we're a positive show. We don't like to be negative, and that's the bullshit of the world I used to work in and the people I used to hang out with and the view they have. They are these men, mostly white men, who their privilege is they've spent their entire life walking into rooms and never having to question their space in it, because it's theirs, just by societal rules that they feel that they're winning by. They don't even know it. So they're just having fun. They're just joshing with you. I'm just hacking on you. I'm just talking shit. And their words can splinter out and cause more problems. The thing with Kimmel isn't just that it's defamation. What he was saying is some nut job who thinks I'm now part of this pedophile drinking baby's blood ring is going to try to kill me at a show. They're going to try to harm my family. That's the implications there. That's why Chappelle's words, despite sometimes I think being a legendary comic who is still funny, his words cause harm. That's the problem that's going on. And the world changed. And I used to be part of a little silly movie show that we just wanted to talk about Batmans and hack on movies. We want to make fun of the G.I. Joe movie. The world changed around us, and some of us changed with it, and some of us realized we have a better place in a more important place with this platform to not talk about the issues, just be careful about the world around us. We're having jokes here. I have a news segment where I take my little jokes. Jokes aren't the problem. It's the disconnection. The McAfee disconnection was what upset me. We're just dudes having fun. Bullshit. The world is more than that now. And if you start wading into this, you got to have a better response to that. And that's what's upsetting to me. And that's where if Kimmel sues, great. I want that to be the thing that people come away with, of that type of just we're talking shit thing doesn't hold water. It never did. It definitely doesn't hold water now.
It's cowardice. It really is cowardly, and it's convenient. And I want to highlight this comment from Eli. Eli at In a Galaxy says, Innuendo Studios calls it Schrodinger's asshole when an idiot makes a stupid remark and then decides, based on the reaction, whether or not they were joking. I love that.
Yes.
Because a lot of that, too, is the convenient, okay, we guys, they're blowing us up. They're flaming us. We have a day to decide. So then Pat goes on, and what bothers me is the lack of backbone, co-signing everything you say, and just adding, the way that he says, we don't like to, because it's a positive show, we don't like anything to be involved with any negativity.
We're just positive.
It's like, well, that first of all, that's cowardly in and of itself. That you think that your show is above being involved in something, I would say serious, and he says negative, which is a problem in and of itself, is a serious thing inherently negative. But then I think Aaron was just talking shit. Obviously it escalated, and Kimmel certainly didn't feel that way. No, I want to know what you think. Kimmel certainly didn't feel that way. I want to know what you have a responsibility as the host of that show. And yes, the role of host is being diminished and destroyed across. Hot sauce can carry a show in lieu of actual hosting a lot of the times. But it's like, where is any type of integrity of McAfee? As I don't know if he's a husband or a father or any of that. Like, I'm, just as a dude, where is the integrity? As someone who kids call into that show and look up to you, I want to know. You should say, I think Aaron this, Jimmy felt this. Where is the and I feel? Where is the and in the future, we're not going to let allegations be used as punchlines? Where's that?
Yeah, I'm with you on that, and that's what, again, I'm a little hot under the collar because this is something I've dealt with here. Dealt with it many times. Where again, the segment itself, I'm not even saying retroactively Pat McAfee should have done this or that. I'm not suggesting you are. I'm just, hey, let's just say the segment happened because that's what happened. You are live for 2 hours, right? 2 hours happens. Someone's going to step on it. It always is. Trust me, I have been there. But it's the response and knowing the position. And that's why I talk about the privilege aspect of it, and the misunderstanding of that word privilege and how it's been dumbed down and it's a war word. My mom, even I fought with my mom for this. Oh, I've struggled too. That's not what privilege is. No one's saying you haven't struggled. You haven't struggled because of X, Y, and Z. McAfee, Rogers, AJ Hawk, all those people on the show have never been in a meeting and had to wonder, oh crap, I'm the only one of me in this meeting. Oh, if I say something wrong, I'll be treated a different way than the people in this meeting. If I walk in the room, it's like the life of the party guys, right? I'm the life of the party. Everyone loves me. Have you asked everyone in the room? I bet McAfee's that kind of guy too, where I'm just a good time guy. And they take no responsibility for their place in the world. Doesn't mean you have to be serious all the time. Doesn't mean you have to have a serious show at all. You can just do silly comedy, but you have to understand your place in the world. And all three of those guys, because Hawk and McAfee are laughing and joking along with everyone else on that show. And it's an innocuous, it's a little slip of a line. It's an arrogant little Kimmel's on that list because a Green Bay Packer player had tweeted out the false information of Kimmel being on the list, the Photoshop fake photo earlier. So I'm sure Rogers was texting with that doofus. And that's what comes out. But you got to know your place in this world once it starts getting serious.
Yeah, and the idea that comedy is not inherently imbued with responsibility is a big thing. Correct. That is the issue here. And I'm not a comedian. You are. You work with several comedians. You have worked with probably hundreds, and I'm sure there is a spectrum of belief on how responsible are we for X, Y, and Z. But you have to imagine that in this day and age, when you have, like we discussed at the top of the show, digital code ghosts out there that just get to contribute to the discourse and then they're gone. They weren't ever really real. Like Photoshops that athletes making 6, even 7 figures just believe and share. even though the world, not maybe not the world, but the nation watches them. Sometimes the world. There is a little bit of responsibility when you branch out of what you establish yourself to be, athlete, and you're like, and now I will be host, and now I will be comic. You're inheriting the responsibilities of those roles too. You don't just get to be like, well, it was just boys talking shit. Well, Boys Talking Shit is not a sponsored show with hundreds of thousands of viewers, et cetera, et cetera. That the rules change, the parameters change.
Yes. Going to the comedy of it all, it can be sometimes complicated and nuanced. I'm always going to give, always, and I'll underline, always going to give any comic, underline any comic, the benefit of the doubt to see where they're going with their bit, because I've been there and I know it, and it should be. Comedy should be about that. But there's a gross misunderstanding of the place. I go this a lot. I'm not going to go to the huge history of it here, and I don't know every aspect of the history, but Lenny Bruce and George Carlin are always brought up. Carlin did not have 7 words on television you can't say. He didn't have that bit because he wanted to say the F word. He was talking about this religious right dominating things like network TV, dominating our culture, setting up the boundaries based on their own moral code. And he wasn't saying, hey, later on he might have said it, but it wasn't, that's your moral code. That shouldn't be the dictate mine, or shouldn't be the thing behind laws. Lenny Bruce wasn't getting arrested because he wanted to say words you couldn't say. He was getting arrested because literally police officers would come to comedy clubs and police the words that you would say, right? And he was fighting against that. And the issue it's so much deeper than that. But let's just break it down to something we all experience. Chris Rock, Will Smith at the Oscars. Will Smith was probably in the wrong more than anyone else in that situation, legally, criminally. It was assault, it was battery, it was all those things. I don't condone that. As someone who has had a comic, who has at a comic show, has had a comedy crowd person charge the stage and wrestle with me on the stage for the microphone. It's not good, and this has happened. Mark Maron's been attacked on stage. This happens a lot. So I'm not here to defend anything about that, but the responsibility of Chris Rock. What was the point of your joke making fun of Jada Pinkett Smith? It was a mean-spirited shot. Whether or not you knew she had alopecia or not does not matter, because you can't know that, right? You can't know that. Maybe he did, but you can't know that. It's the spirit of your joke. Words matter. What you say matters. There's no point in that joke. It was mean-spirited. It was silly. It was old. It was archaic. We don't need that anymore. Find other things to joke about. The reaction was extreme. And again, I think I would have pressed charges against Will Smith. Chris Rock didn't. There's more to it, but that's a situation we all lived in, and that is kind of what we're talking about here. They got to have some responsibility of what you're trying to do, the themes of what you're trying to say on stage.
I also think, building off of that, to say, I think, McAfee didn't say just joking around. He said just talking shit. But any variation of the just joking around, format, any version that someone gives you of that, I think also inherently implies that they think humor doesn't matter at all. And that's sort of that they think that is their license, building off Eli's comment about Schrodinger's asshole and that whole idea. It's like if I say it comedically, then it doesn't matter because comedy doesn't matter, which is inherently a problem in society, politics, art, the intersection of all three. The Golden Globe still puts comedy in its own award.
It's so funny. You're not meaning this, but it's like there should be more comedic leads in Academy Award nominations. Yes, it's exactly why I get frustrated with the Star Wars of it all. Because Star Wars, Marvel, it is pop culture. Look at what just happened the other day with this 13-year-old kid defeats Tetris, which, by the way, Mark Ellis has done that before. God bless that kid. He just lost his father. You're joining the club with Mark Ellis, all right? That's a fact. A news reporter, I think Sky News, makes fun of him and says, oh, you go out and touch grass, get some air. It is an old, archaic view on the video game nerd in the closet. And same with Star Wars and Marvel and pop culture. It is our culture. So when you you could either be that newscaster that talks bad about it, or worse, the worst end to me is be a talking head in the Star Wars world and in the Marvel world and not understand that this all has a bigger place. It's all trying to tell a different story. It is not just fluff. There's enough people like Bill Maher who will try to tell you the comic books are fluff. We got that. That's a known. Why are you inside of that industry as a commentator, as a podcaster, or a fan, not understanding that the X-Men was about civil rights? That's on you to understand that. You should understand that and not look down on it. Comedians have that I'm just joking mentality. because it's not important. It's tremendously important. You're also pumping up Carlin and Lenny Bruce and Bill Hicks and all these folks who are legends and did wonderful things, but they weren't just joking. Carlin was not just joking on stage once he locked in to who George Carlin wanted to be on stage. Fascinating career. He changed his view, his approach a few times. Once he locked in on who he wanted to be, he wasn't just doing jokes. He had in the same special that he comes out in New York in the late 80s, I think early 90s. He attacks the right wing over abortion rights, and then he goes into airline food jokes. That I don't even know would work in a 6-person crowd at Yoo-Hoo Room at Burbank anymore. But it wasn't just fluff. Comedy matters. All this stuff, art matters. And that's where my argument goes, and goes back to Green Day, it goes back to American Idiot. Alden, you're going to have to stop me. We're going to go for 2 hours of me just yelling.
No, I think that's why I was, in the planning of the show, a little behind the scenes. That's why we said we don't need a main topic, because we got 2 stories here that perfectly meet at this cross section of you don't just get to take things seriously sometimes. You just don't get to. And if you hear that and you think, why is the kid with glasses and a beanie telling me what to do? Then you're not actually hearing what I'm saying. To take things seriously sometimes is, as you mentioned, privilege, because there are hosts that we both know, hosts of color that do not identify as men, that if they had somebody just talking shit on their show, throwing allegations at, I don't know, one of us or someone else that we know, it would be a problem, and you would see the pearl clutching begin from the brand directors or whoever the hell else in these offices. It's always things moving around to conveniently fit what people want to deal with on any given day, but things still happen whether you want to take them seriously or not. And it's like, you hate to be like an alarmist and go for like the worst case scenario, but like, let's say that ABC did start to take action against Kimmel because of something that Rogers said, and Kimmel's now getting investigated, and his kids are being told, "Oh, your dad's a pedo," and this, that. Like, that's on you, Pat. That is on you for platforming that. That's why like people don't take what we do seriously a lot of the times in broadcast media. But when you're making the decision of like, who are we going to bring on or who are we not, you are not necessarily co-signing their beliefs, but you are saying we are prepared for everything that having this person on a live microphone entails.
I mean,
good, bad, and different.
Yeah. When you said Alex Backus was going to come on the show, I wasn't sure about that. I wasn't sure about it, though. Absolutely not. No, because I know Alex's heart. I know what he puts into it. I know what he understands about art. Anyways, well said, sir. We're going to start wrapping up the show. There's a lot much more to get to. No Q&A this time. If you got any super chats, super thanks for those later on, you can obviously do that and help support the show. One of the best ways you can support the show is not only give us a like over here, subscribe to my channel, but subscribe to the Anytime with Ken and Alden channel, as we're trying to build that out so we can move everything over there. And maybe I can just do more silly, stupid stuff in this channel and not always get political. Maybe. We'll see about that. We do want to leave, though, with our pop rock word of wisdom to leave on, sponsored by my music show, Pop Rock and Radio, which very soon will be a syndicated radio show as well. This is a lyric from Yola and her song Diamond Studded Shoes back in 2021. Alden, as we start a new year, times are tough, and you and I shine, but we don't get to decide when the man comes for our paychecks. Don't you tell me you'll be all right. We aren't the rich ones. Some of us will barely get by. They buy diamond-studded shoes with our taxes. Anything to keep us divided. I look at where we're at with corporate power, corporations as people who get away with so much, who are destroying the industries that they claim to be in, and we are all struggling. And we are, truly, all of us are struggling. And that does go a long way towards the conversation about empathy and understanding wherever everyone is coming from, including flyover states, coastal elites, all of them. We're all got some kind of struggle. And that is my pop rock word of wisdom from Yola.
Love it. Love that. Got to check that song out. I had not heard it. Definitely excited to check that out. And when the show becomes the syndicated show, going to be able to hear a lot of good stuff. Very excited.
I'll keep you all updated. All right, that's it. Alden, I'll leave you with a final word because I'm parched.
Yeah, just be good to each other. Take things seriously. Try to do something kind. It's still early in the year. I think our final thing is that from us here at Anytime, we will give you an extension on starting whatever resolution you came up for yourself. These first days didn't count.
I love it. An extension on your resolutions. We'll see you next time. Bye.